Okay, good afternoon, students. Hello. Um, if you if you can hear me, please. Um, there are two students watching right now. If you can hear the stream, please let me know. Also, um, please just give me some idea how the quality of the video is. Um, we've had two power outages uh, since I got here, but so I'm just I hope that the video and the audio quality is good. Okay, so um, just type it. Please let me know about the audio and video quality. Thanks. Okay, so according to this, there are about 10 people um, in the live slides, but only two people watching right now. Two people watching the video stream. Hopefully, more people will join. Uh, uh, Again, this is an opportunity for you to ask some questions regarding our midterm, and then I will also show some sample questions. Okay, some sample questions, so you have an idea how uh, how difficult or how easy the midterm exam will be. Okay, um, and you can prepare. Okay, you have the weekend to prepare for it. Okay, so far 11 participants, 12 participants, and um, three people watching the live stream. Okay, so I will start the slides again. If you go through the chat, you will see where you can access the slides. Okay, so I will start the presentation. I'll start from the beginning. Okay, so again, for those who are watching, thank you. Um, Today we will prepare for our midterm exam. So we'll review some questions, and then at the end of the session, you can, if you have questions about our lessons that you um, have after reviewing our slides, then you can ask later. So our topics for today, first we'll look at the composition of the midterm exam, and then I'll show you some sample test items, and then again I'll try to answer any questions or clarifications, especially about our lessons. Okay. um, so for our midterm, okay, for our midterm exam, um, for the types of learning that I'm looking for. Okay, for the types of learning I'm looking for, I want to see how well you remember and understand the material. Okay, that will be about 25 points. About 25 points. Um, and then I'd also then like to see how well you can apply what you understood from our lessons. That will be about 15 points. And then um, I would also like to see how well you analyze whether something is true, or to evaluate, to make decisions on the information that you have about our lessons, and then finally to synthesize, okay, or try to build connections between the things you've learned. Okay, so this will be 30 points. Now it doesn't mean that um, it's one item per point. Mostly when it's a remember and understand type of question, when it's a remember and understand type of question, it'll be um, one item per point. Okay, If it's an application type question, it may be um, one 1 to 2 points. 1 to 2 points per question. Okay. And then finally, if it's more of analysis, evaluation, and synthesis, okay, it'll be about 2 to 5 points, okay, per question. So there's a total of 70 points. Okay, there's a total of 70 points, but it doesn't mean that there will be 70 items. Okay, so there will probably be like about 50 or 6 only, yeah, only about 50 plus, between 50 and 60 items for our exam. Okay, question so far? Okay, so I'll just type something. Okay, uh, okay. Can you hear me clearly? Okay. Now, regarding uh, the topics, okay, so we've had 7 lessons. Okay, um, thank you. Um, so at least I know one person is can hear me well. Regarding the topics of so we've had 7 lessons. I've tried to so I've looked at the slides again, okay, and um, just based on the amount of material there are in the slides, I've tried to distribute as evenly as possible the points of our questions, okay, the points of our test. So um, for the first lesson, IT and society, about 13% of the total 70 points will come from this topic. For the second lesson, information systems, about 14%. 14% will come from this topic or this lesson. Systems analysis and design will be about 9% of the points. Um, project management will be about 10% of the points. Encoding data, which is one of the bigger topics, or one of the longer topics, the one where we looked at number systems, so binary to decimal, binary to hexadecimal, decimal to hexadecimal. This will be about 24 points. Okay, this is also where we talk about how do you compute for the um, how do you compute for the uncompressed file size of a graphic, or the uncompressed file size of an audio file. Okay. Then will be lesson 6 is application software, which is about 11% of the points. And then finally, 19% of the points from our midterm exam will come from the introduction to programming. So this is where we'll do some code correction, or where we'll look at where we will look at um, things such as um, looking at looking at a piece of code and trying to figure out how many times a loop will run. Okay, so that's pretty much the composition of our exam, the breakdown of the different topics and point percentages. Okay, um, so now on to the important part, really, which is some sample questions of our test. Okay, so okay, the first question here, okay, is how many bytes are in how many bits are in 1 byte? Okay, how many bits are in 1 byte? Okay, people were asking whether whether I will give points. I'm sorry, give questions. Or sorry, choices. Okay. Well, whether I will give choices for this particular question. Okay. So people were asking whether I will give like choices for this question. This is probably okay. How many bits in one byte will probably be the only question that will be identification. Okay? I won't give choices for this. Um, this is something that I think we've mentioned several times during our lesson. Okay? What the answer to this. Okay? What the answer to this question is. I think it's been stressed enough. Okay? Okay, so um, what you'll see is you'll see answers not just from your class. You're also going to see answers from the previous class, the earlier class, because I just used the same set of slides for the two sections. Okay, so um, so from both classes, most people answered 8, and then there's some people that said bits and 16. So if we look at it, okay, okay, so okay, a lot of people answered 8. A few people answered 16. Okay, 8 bits. Okay, of course, our answer here, okay, the correct answer, of course, is 8 bits. 8 bits equals 1 byte. Okay? 8 bits equals 1 byte. Okay, so that's the correct answer. Please don't forget this. This is one of the most important one of the most important pieces of data that you should have gotten from the slides. Okay? It's very essential, especially when you're computing for the size of images or the size of audio. Okay? Again, 8 bits is 1 byte. Okay? Hopefully, those who answered 16, okay, will remember this now. Okay? Those who answered 16 will remember that 8 bits is the correct answer. Okay, moving on. Okay? Oops. Okay, next. So the next question is, which of the following components of an information system handles networks or the connection of a computer to other devices? Okay. So, okay. So, again, the choices for this particular question are connectivity, okay, databases, hardware, people, procedures, and software. Okay? So which of these components is is the one that handles networks? Okay? Again, this is now if you see these questions here, okay, it doesn't necessarily mean so for sure, okay, for sure, um, the how many bits in a byte is going to be in our pool of questions. Okay? So, what do I mean by a pool of questions or a question bank? Okay? It means that I'm actually preparing more questions. So, if in your exam you will get 50 items, it actually means that I've prepared 100 items. It actually means that I've prepared 100 items, and um, the Moodle exam will pick items at random. Okay? The Moodle exam will pick items at random from the bank and will populate your exam. So you and your seatmate will not have the same questions. Some of these questions may be in the bank, but it doesn't mean that all of these questions will appear. And some of these questions I will still are modified versions of the some of the questions that I've actually put in our um, item bank or our question bank or question pool. Okay? So, let's look at your answers and some of your classmates' answers and your other sections' answers. So okay, most people have answered connectivity. Some people answered software and databases. Okay? So if you look, these are the people um, who answered connectivity. These are the people who answered uh, databases, and these are the people who answered software. Okay? So the correct answer here, the correct answer here. Oh, and I'm not going to give points for these questions, okay? For these questions right now, okay? I won't be handing out participation points for these questions. Again, I'm really just trying to help you out, okay? With your exam, so to make it easier, okay? To make it, uh, again, if you have questions about some items, then we can clarify, okay? So most people answered connectivity, and so I'll hide the answers. So yes, the answer here, the answer to this item is actually connectivity. Okay, so the answer is connectivity. Why? Why not software? Okay, so connectivity refers to the technology, the part of the information system that handles um, communications between different devices. Okay, the these the routers and um, the networking and communication equipment are all under connectivity, and these actually are combinations. These are like a combination of, they have their own firmware or software, and they have their own hardware. Okay, so it's like a specialized form. Okay, specialized form of uh, a specialized form of like a combination, a hybrid of hardware and software. Okay? So, and that's why it deserves its own, it really deserves its own category. Okay? So, again, the answer is connectivity. Okay? So, next question. Next question is, which of the following phases of systems analysis and design, okay, or the systems development life cycle, actually let's rephrase this, of the systems development life cycle, or SDLC, handles, okay, the training of the users. Okay, systems develop, or the SDLC. Which of the phases of the SDLC, in which phase are the users trained? Okay? Yeah, maybe that's a better way to phrase this. In which phase? In which phase of the systems development life cycle are in which phase is In which phase of the systems development is the are the users trained? During which phase are the users trained? And I think that's a better way of phrasing that question. Okay? So again, during which phase of the SDLC are the users trained? So in systems analysis and design, okay, during this process. So there are six phases in this life cycle, but I've eliminated the first one, the preliminary investigation. Okay? So I'm just um, letting you choose from the last five phases or five, yeah, five phases of the life cycle. So six people watching, seven people watching. Okay, so during which phase of the system's development life cycle are the users trained? Okay, let's look at people's answers. Okay, so a lot of people answered systems implementation. A few people answered. Then the next would be systems development, and then systems design, systems analysis, and systems maintenance have pretty much the same number of people. So people are still switching. Okay. So people, so systems development and systems implementation still have the highest number of votes. Again, these are answers from both sections. Both sections. So, um, again, so if you noticed, so most of our questions actually will be multiple choice type questions. A lot of our questions will be multiple choice. Okay? Um, but again, most of these will usually be just 1 point. Okay? Um, no question so far. Okay, so the answer here, which phase of the SDLC are during which phase are the users trained? Okay, so the answer here is systems implementation. Okay, systems implementation. So no need to change your answers. Okay, just just know that it's during this phase that uh, your users are trained. Okay? So in systems analysis, again, you try to figure out the source of the problem. During systems design, you try to figure out which is the best or the most feasible. Okay? So this is where you do your feasibility analysis. Um, which is the most feasible? So you do your economic, your technical, and your organizational feasibility or tama ba? So yeah, your feasibility studies, you do it during this phase. Okay, so your uh, operational, I think operational feasibility during this particular part, and then development. So once you've actually chosen which, okay, so you have maybe like two choices and you look at the feasibility of both choices, that's when you actually decide. So in during development, once you've made the decision about which option you're going with, this is when you start to actually um, get the right equipment, the software, the hardware, and to find suppliers for this particular solution that you've chosen. Okay, so systems implementation starts with the conversion. Okay, so whether it's a phased conversion or a pilot conversion, or um, maybe it's a parallel conversion, or you just switch over. It's a direct conversion from your old system. No matter which approach you use, okay, this is also the part. So once you've started converting to the new system or adjusting the old system to incorporate the new system, this is when you start training your people. This is when they start to learn how to use this new part of the system or this entirely new system. Okay? So, the answer is systems implementation. Of course, systems maintenance is when you try to evaluate. Okay? Systems maintenance is when you try to evaluate the system, whether it's actually solving the problems that you initially identified. Okay? And this is when you try to make adjustments. Okay? To fix any bugs. Okay? Or maybe it's actually if it's not actually solving the problem, then it's good to start the the process again. Okay, so again, the answer for this particular question is systems implementation. Okay, so far you've seen one question, the only question that will be identification, which is how many bits in a byte. Okay, the answer being 8. Okay, but most of our questions will be, when we look at it, will be multiple choice. Okay, so these are some of the sample types of questions. Okay, oops, sorry. Okay, so next question. Next question here is, so we will also have true or false type questions. Okay, we will also have true or false type questions. Okay? So 7 people watching. Okay? And some people just, I guess, looking at the slides. Okay? So the question is, middle management handles the information obtained from, okay, let me fix that. Obtained from transaction processing systems, or the systems used to track basic day-to-day transactions. Okay? So the question here is true or false. This is a basic true or false question. Again, questions like these will be just 1 point per item. Okay? So we will also have, so we have mostly um, multiple choice, and then we will also have true or false type questions. Okay, so this is a fairly easy question. Okay. Oh, sorry, not freeze. Show answers. Okay, so several people have answered false. Okay, or most people answered false, and then a few people uh, answered true. Okay, so hide the answers. We'll give more people time to answer this particular question. Okay, so um, middle management handles information obtained from transaction processing systems or from the basic day-to-day transactions. Okay. Any more changes? Okay. So here are the people that answered, okay, answered true, and some of the people that answered false. Okay? So the answer here, okay, the answer here is actually uh, false. Okay? Why false? Why false? Because middle management doesn't won't really focus on um, like the day-to-day operations. Okay, this is handled more by supervisors. Handled more by supervisors. So for middle management, what they're actually, so once the transaction processing systems have collected data, that data is organized, okay, So the system itself will also produce information, but that information will be further organized. So maybe it's a weekly, you create a weekly report or a monthly report. Okay? Uh, so a monthly report, and that those information will then be collected and organized and put into a management information system or in a management information system. Okay? So the MIS is actually what middle management usually um, interacts with. Okay? So an MIS instead of a TPS or a transaction processing system. So middle management would be working more with an MIS. A TPS would be supervisors. And then um, your top level management and your some of the higher level middle management would probably work with what's known as a DSS or decision support system. But mostly, again, your decision makers, your higher decision makers, your top management, those are the ones that would handle more what's known as DSS or decision support system. And then we'll talk about later. We'll talk about another type. Okay, so another type of information system. Okay, so answer is false. The answer here is false. Okay, another true or false type question. So I prepared for a samples about 10 questions. Okay? So, question is if the statement is if a binary number ends with a 1. So the rightmost number or the rightmost digit, binary digit or bit, the rightmost bit is a 1. When it's converted to a decimal number, it will be an odd number. Okay? So is this true or false? Okay? Okay? If a binary number ends with a 1, the rightmost digit is a 1. When it is converted to a decimal number, it will be odd. True or false? Okay, so I'll look at some of the answers from both classes. Okay, so most people answered true, and then one person answered false. So looking at our live answers. Okay, so what's the answer here? Will it be an odd number or an even one? Okay, so again, remember if you look at our slides, okay, so the or for this particular example, if you try to convert this 8-bit, okay, 8-bit number, okay, into a decimal number, okay, into a decimal number. So I'll open. You can use your computer's calculator. You can also use Excel to convert this number. Okay, so if you try to convert this number into a decimal number, okay, so the number you're actually going to get, okay, the number you're actually going to get is equal to 147. So the answer here is if the rightmost bit of a binary number is 1, then for sure it will be a an odd number. Okay? So in our example, 100 10011 in binary is equal to 147 in decimal. So the answer is true. So the answer here, okay, the correct answer is true. Okay? Why? Because at least for this particular example, if you look at it, so it's an 8-bit number. So this is actually 1 times 2 to the 8th power, and the next one is 0 times, okay, so 1 times 2 to the 8th power plus, okay, 0 times 2 to the 7th power, okay, plus 0 times 2 to the 6th power, and then um, sorry, tama ba? No, no, sorry, 2 to the 7th pala to. 1 times, sorry, it's an 8-bit number. So, it's 1 times 2 to the 7th power, and then the next one is 0 times 2 to the 6th. So, 1 times 2 to the 7th power plus 0 times 2 to the 6th power plus 0 times 2 to the 5th power plus 1 times 2 to the 4th power plus 0 times 2 to the 3rd power plus 0 times 2 to the 2nd power, and then plus 1 times 2 to the 1st power, and then this last one is times 1, times 1 times 2 to the 0 power, which is 1 times 1. Okay? So all of these will result in some exponent of 2, and that's going to make sure that it's even. But this last one is, okay, is always, if it's a 1, then it's going to be plus 1. Okay, so it's going to be plus 1, which means in most case, okay, no matter what happens here, okay, if the last digit is a 1, then it means that it's plus 1. Okay, an even number plus 1. Okay, is that clear? Okay. Okay. So we will also have, okay, um, we will also have some um, modified true or false. Okay, so for questions like these, I'll probably assign about 2 points, depending on the question. Okay, how difficult the question is. Usually, I'll assign about 2 points for this type of question. So whether if the correct answer is true, it will if even so if the correct answer is true, it will still be worth 2 points. If okay, uh, if the question is really a little difficult to figure out. Okay? So the question here, specialist systems are knowledge-based systems that give advice based on collected information from databases. Okay? If the answer is true, okay? If the statement is correct, you can answer true. But if the statement is false, then you should replace the highlighted word, so that the statement will become true. Okay, so will become correct. Okay, so in this case, where if if the answer to this question is that it's not correct statement, okay, it's an incorrect statement, then you need to replace the word specialist with something else. You need to replace the word specialist with something else. So, Some people are still answering. Okay, so okay? If you remember correctly, sorry. If just to remind you, the type of system that we're talking about here, my example during our slides, okay, my example during our slides was Tesla's autopilot. Okay, the self-driving system of the Tesla cars. Okay, so is it is the Tesla autopilot an example of what a specialist system? True or false? Okay, so that okay. Well, it not not that that's the actual question. So this is the statement that you have to figure out whether it's true or false. But that kind of system where it takes information and uses that information to make decisions. Okay, so knowledge. Okay, make decisions about driving. Okay, how if the car should accelerate, if the car should decelerate, how the car should be able to switch lanes. Okay, that's knowledge based on information that it's gathered. The car is making decisions. Is that referred to as a specialist system? So let's look at our answers now. Okay. So some people answered true. Some people answered expert. Some people answered specialized, knowledge, analysis. Okay. Expert, AI, true, general, knowledge, security. Okay. Some people answered true. Okay. So the answer here, so if you look at the word cloud, most people answered expert, okay, from the two sections. The next biggest word is the word true, okay? And then I think knowledge and specialized. Knowledge is a little bit bigger, I think. Maybe a little bit bigger. And then specialized next. And then the others are pretty much about the same size. So the answer here is expert systems. So expert is the correct answer. Expert systems. Okay. So I just want to check how's the quality of the video. It seems to have become pixelated on my end. Can people verify? Okay, can people just let me know if um, the video is the quality of the video has become poorer? Okay, thank you. So baka lang tong stream, maybe this just the stream on my end. Okay? Okay, so thank you. It says here there are a few. Thank you very much for those people who confirmed. Okay, thank you. There. Okay, so um, sorry, there's. I'll answer this later. Okay. Um, sorry, sorry for the interruption. There's someone calling. Hindi lang Sorry, sorry. I will try to answer this. Okay. Excuse me. Hello, good afternoon. Yes. Opo. 9 p.m. po. Yung alin po to? Hindi po. I think 4:30 po yung pina-reserve nila. Opo. Baka mali po yan. The hotel was confirming something. Okay. Okay, back to the lesson. Sorry for that interruption. Again, so the answer here, okay, is an expert system. Okay, right. The answer is an expert system. So let's move on to the next type of question being a matching type question. So we will also have matching type questions, and um, this is an example of one of the possible questions that you might receive during the exam. Now, the items in column B, okay, I just made that up for this particular um, as sample question. But actually, I do plan um, to use the items in column A. I might change the question a little bit, okay? Mostly again, the items from column B. But so I didn't put choices anymore. Okay, I didn't put choices anymore. Okay, because it's a little bit harder to set up like a matching type question in HyperSay. It's a little bit harder to set up that kind of a question in HyperSay. But for instance, okay, so Ada Lovelace, okay, I'll just say the answers here. Ada Lovelace, okay, what did she do? Okay, so in this example, the people in column A are like historical figures who are important in the development of computers and computing. Okay, so Ada Lovelace um, looked at notes or looked at was trying to translate an article about the work of Charles Babbage. And what happened was during her translation, okay, if you don't remember me talking about this, during her translation, she was making notes on the side of the paper about how this machine could be basically how it could be programmed or how it could be made to do um, the types of computations that it needed to do, how you can uh, make it do these kinds of computations. And therefore, Ada Lovelace is generally referred to as the first computer programmer. Okay. Her ideas showed the logic of computer programming. Okay? Here, Alan Turing, this is definitely not going to be the answer here. But Alan Turing is also, aside from all his achievements, breaking codes, German codes, and then being the father of AI, being the father of computer science. He also helped to design the automatic computing engine or ACE. Okay? Charles Babbage. Charles Babbage created these mechanical, okay, uh, computers. Okay, so analog computers. Um, so he helped design them, but unfortunately he wasn't able to finish any of his designs. Why? Because one, I think he ran out of funding. It wasn't his own, okay, his own. It wasn't from his pocket. It's not out of pocket, but he was funded. So he ran out of funding. It was very difficult. There were a lot of challenges during the time. Okay, so he designed the difference engine and the analytical engine later on. Okay? Um, Herman Hollerith uh, created or was able to tabulate the 1880 US Census using a punch card system. Okay? And his company eventually became IBM. Okay? And then lastly, Joseph Marie Jacquard, so created a loom attachment that was that made it easier for people to create complicated weaving designs, okay, using punch cards, So he designed a punch card loom attachment that made it easier to mass produce these designs. Okay, so we have to memorize names. Uh, do you have to memorize names for? I think this is one of the easier ones. I think this is easier one of the easier questions. Um, Again, ACE and um, difference engine, difference engine will probably will not appear in the exam. This is just a sample. More important really is um, remembering what their achievements were. I think this pretty much these are the only names that you'll really remember. The names of these particular computing pioneers. Okay? Okay. So, now, this one, I think, if I'm not mistaken, y- there might be an error if you use Excel. Okay? If you use Excel to convert this particular number. This one isn't actually going to appear in the exam. Okay? This is just an example. Okay? This is just an example of a conversion question. So, converting binary number to decimal and hexadecimal. So, it being 1 point each. Okay? Um, but again, maybe I'll just make you convert it from a binary to decimal. Maybe I'll just make you convert it from a decimal to a hexadecimal. This is again just a sample, probably not going to appear in the exam itself. Okay? So, okay, converting from your other options. So let's say if it has about if the binary number has about 10 digits, I think it won't work in Excel. Okay? Um, but if you have a if you have your calculator app open in Windows, I think the calculator app can actually convert this into a decimal number. Okay? So let's look at some of your answers. Okay? So people's answers include okay, 683, 68310. Okay? Let's look at more live answers. So, there. Um, Oh, maybe I'm guessing this means what you mean by this is it's in decimal. So on this is maybe this example is it's supposed to be subscript 683 and then subscript 10. Okay, and then this one is okay for hexadecimal. So some let's hide this. Okay, so the answers here would be for decimal, it's 683. Okay, and then for hexadecimal, it's 2AB. It's 2AB. So you could also compute for this. Okay, so again, this is 1 times 2 to the 0 power. Again, plus, and you add this 1 times 2 to the first power, and then this is again 1 times 2 to the third power, plus 1 times 2 to the fifth power, plus 1 times 2 to the seventh power, and then plus 1 times 2 to the ninth power. Okay? So again, what you get here is a decimal number, 683, and a hexadecimal number, 2AB. Okay? So, question so far. So I hope you got that right. Again, I will try to limit. I will try to limit the questions. I will try to limit the questions uh, so that you can easily convert it in Excel or even on your calculators. Okay, so maybe like a maximum of a 9-digit by 9 bit binary digit or 9-bit number. Okay, for uh, binary to decimal or binary to hexadecimal conversions. Okay, so that's an example of like a conversion question. And then here's one example of a question where we'll be looking at evaluating some code. Okay, so the question here is how many times will the loop, will the loop in this particular piece of code, the one below, how many times will it run? Okay, how many times will the loop repeat for this particular code? Okay, so the what I'll ask the technician to do for Monday is um, I will we will limit our software to so you will be able to run Excel, you will be able to run the calculator, you will be able to use live code, but um, and you will be able to visit Moodle in our browser. Okay, but aside from that, you cannot use any other websites or any other programs. Okay? So, how many times? How many times will this particular code run? Okay? So, let's look at your answers. So, if you look at the uh, people's answers, so let's look. Okay? So, how does the logic of the computer work here? So the first piece of code is to put 6 into our variable, which is x. So right now, okay, while the code is running, x is equal to 6. So, okay. And then the loop will start. Okay, the loop will start. So repeat this loop or run this loop while x is greater than 0. Since x is right now equal to 6, okay, that is still true. Okay, so it's still true that x, so 6 is greater than 0. So this piece of code will run. Okay, so this is the code inside the loop. So this is the first run. Okay, where 2 subtract 2 from x. So x, which was 6, 6 minus 2, and then it will start the loop again. Okay, so it checks again is 4. Okay, so x was 6 and then we subtracted 2. Is 4 greater than 0? The answer is still yes. So again, it will run the code inside the loop. So it will subtract 2, but this time from 4. Okay? So so subtract 2 from 4. 4 minus 2 equals 2. And then it goes back to the start of the loop. Okay? So it checks. Will it still repeat? So the x is now, so 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 is still greater than 0. Okay? 2 is still greater than 0. So it will still run this. So subtract 2 from, this time x is now 2. So 2 minus 2 equals 0. And then it will try to run the code again. But first, it will check. Is x, which is 0 right now, is it greater than 0? So this is now false. And therefore it will no longer run this particular piece of code and the loop will already end. So the answer here is that the loop runs 3 times. Okay, that the loop will run 3 times. Okay? I hope this was clear. Okay, so some questions will be like this where you're evaluating how many times a particular piece of code will run, or what will the end, what will the answer be at the end of the code. Okay? How will it work? Okay. Okay, so this will be the last sample question. So I'm asking you one. So this is a two-part question. What output appears when you run the program? So you can actually copy this. You can actually copy this code and run it in live code. Okay, and then knowing that a certain answer appears, how can you change? How can you change one of these lines? Okay, how can you change one of these lines so that, okay, um, the dialog box will print 0 instead of the current output. Okay, we still want the dialog box to print the value of the variable. Okay, we still want the dialog box to print the value of the variable, but we need to change one of these lines so that it works out that way. Okay? So, again, you can open live code. You can try to run this code to see what happens, or to see what the result of the code is. So, let's look at some of your answers. Again, let's go here. Okay, so let's just wait for more people to give their responses. Okay. Okay. So, for the first question, okay, so someone is asking, x value is not defined. Okay. So, if you actually run this code, okay, what will happen is, so you put this, you create a new stack. In the stack, you place a button. Okay. You you select the button and you open the code dialog. Okay, and you put this code inside. Okay, you copy this code that appears on the slide into your code dialog, and then you apply it. Okay, so when you run your application, when you click on the button, the dialog box that appears, okay, so a lot of people got this right, okay, a lot of people checked it, okay, um, tried to run it in live code. What will appear is the dialog box will show the letter X, okay, so answer X will come up with X, okay. So what's the error in the code, okay? The error actually comes up from the first line in our, okay, the first line in our mouse up, okay, in our mouse up code. So instead of put x equals 0, okay, put x equals 0, okay, what we want to put, okay, I think the first one from your class to answer this correctly is to I think Mia's answer. So instead of put x equals 0, what you want to put in this line is put 0 into x. Okay? So that when you answer x, it will come out as the value of x, which is 0. Okay? Hopefully that was clear. Okay? So I'll type it in our chat, in our, okay, correct answer. So unedited, unedited, the code will show a dialog box with uh, printing X, or which prints X. Inside. Okay. To make the program show 0, okay, 0 in the dialog box, we replace put, we replace the line put x equals 0 with put 0 into x. So what happens with put x equals 0 is it actually checks whether x is equal to 0. But since we haven't actually defined it yet, okay, we haven't put a value into x yet, okay, then we it we don't know yet whether x is, okay, whether x is equal to 0. So what what you should do is put the value into the variable x first, okay, so that when you answer with x, the value of x appears. Okay, hopefully this was clear. Okay, so the answer here, okay, so you have to put x into put 0 into x. Okay, put 0 into x. Okay, so that's those are some of the sample questions for our test. Okay, Now, we still have about 9 or so minutes remaining. If you have questions, if there are any clarifications about our slides, you can ask them now. You may also ask any questions about our test. Um, is 1 hour sufficient? Well, our class is it's a Monday class, so we have 1.5 hours actually. We have 1.5 hours on Monday. That should be enough time. Uh, do we have any programming? Um, for programming, okay, mostly it will be evaluating code. For instance, okay, uh, how many times a loop will run, or or what will dialog box output. So for programming, it's going to be what the output of a particular program will be, or for evaluating, yeah, how many times will a particular loop run, okay? Or I'm I will probably ask, okay, or I will ask you to complete a program. The the buttons, um, buttons and uh, fields are already named, but there's missing code. Missing code, and I will give you what the output should be. You have to figure out. You will have to figure out how to make the program come out with that output. Okay? But these will be fewer items. Okay? Fewer items for these kinds of questions. For evaluation, again, so mostly like the evaluation type questions, the analysis, evaluation, and synthesis type questions will mostly be, so it's about 30 points. It's about 30 points of the exam, but minimum it's going to be 2 points per item. So that's about 15 questions. But again, there will be some questions that will be worth more points. So maybe 3 points, maybe 5 points. Okay? So in total, that's not, so 30 points is actually going to be like maybe just 15, maybe even 12 items only. Okay? So it's not going to be, you're probably going to end up with an exam that's only about 50 questions. Okay? Any more questions? So we have about 4 more minutes if you have uh, other questions about. So here, someone's asking, are there other references or reading materials you can study, or will the slides be enough? Okay. Aside from the slides, as long as you were in class and you paid attention, you should be able to perform well. Sir, will you give partial points if we are not able to figure out how to make the program come out with the output? Will I give partial points? Um, yes. So even in some of the objective questions, actually, yes, I do give partial points. So there are some objective questions where there are multiple answers. If you only, let's say, if there are supposed to be 4 correct answers, um, and you only get like 3 out of the 4, you'll probably get 75% of that, the full score of that particular item. For some of the objective questions. Okay? So about, there's 1 more minute remaining. Okay? Maybe we have time for 1 more question, if anyone else. Okay? No more questions? So, let's see how many people are participating. Maybe here, no questions in no questions in our HyperSay chat as well. So if there are no more questions, hopefully you now have a better idea how our exam will go. Thank you very much for participating in this live stream. Okay. Okay. Thank you for participating in the live stream. Good luck reviewing for the midterm. Okay. I hope you all do well. So, see you on Monday. Thank you very much. I'm turning off the stream now.